Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to Molten Modular. I'm stuffed here into my tiny DIY corner and today I'm building the Dreadbox Hypnosis. Ooh, the Hypnosis this is a reissue of the desktop unit that they did, and the idea is that they called it a time effects processor. It's born in the trendiest, coolest part of the 80s and offers things like chorus, flanging, reverb and delay. What's interesting about the reverb is that it's an actual spring reverb, like a real one, like what I've never had in my hands before. So that's personally quite exciting. For the reissue, they've got rid of all of the knobs and have replaced it all with sliders, a bit more like the Dysmetria or the Dysphonia or something of that nature. And they've made it Eurorack compatible, so it can just drop straight into your system, which is why I'm mostly interested in it. Although I have to say I was very, very tempted to buy it in the first instance, because it just looked like such a lovely thing. And I should also point out that I bought this. This hasn't been sent to me by Dreadbox. I bought it myself because I think it's fabulous and I'm going to give it a go putting it together right now. Just dropping my future self in here because I felt that I didn't really explain the Hypnosis reissue very well, and I think it's important to understand that there's actually quite a large difference between the original Hypnosis and this Hypnosis reissue, which I have brilliantly installed into my nifty keys here, which you're going to hear later. So the differences are that the original had an interesting and unique pitch circuit on the spring reverb. It had 3 LFOs going into the chorus flanger, and it had 3 different modes of delay. With the reissue, you've got 1 LFO in the chorus flanger. You have 1 mode of delay. In fact, the delay is taken from the Erebus, and the spring reverb is just a spring reverb with gain and pre-delay. So it's a much simpler unit. It's also a lot cheaper. But what you are getting is 3 gorgeously juicy, lo-fi, crunchy, 80s inspired analog effects in 1 gorgeous looking box. As you were. So what do you get in the kit? Well, you get a rather nice front panel. That's a good start. But come on in and we'll have a look. There's a bag of things. Oh, that twang. That must be the reverb spring there. Fascinating. It's fascinating that spring reverb actually uses a spring. I know that sounds obvious, and it's always been obvious, and that clanky sound I had in my old guitar amp is exactly what it is, a spring whacking about. But the reality and the physicality of actually having a spring which creates that sound that makes our music seem so otherworldly, it's just an extraordinary thing to wrap your head around. It's one of those situations where if it was digital, or anything that's digital, yeah, do what you like. It has absolutely no impact on me in terms of, oh, isn't that amazing? It's like, yeah, digital, do whatever you like. But things in the real world, analog stuff, it's like a needle on a piece of vinyl. How the heck is that working? Bits of spring for reverb. How and who came up with this? And isn't that extraordinary? I mean, I could just sit around baffled and in absolute wonderment all the time. That's why I love this stuff, all this analog stuff. It just excites my brain and makes the juices flow in really interesting ways. So anyway, where was I? So that's a reverb thing. That's a bunch of small bits, screws and things. This is the adapter, which is going to turn the Eurorack socket into USB for USB powering in a case, if that's what you want to do. This is the control front panel with all the sliders already in place, all the patch sockets, buttons already in place. Not a whole lot for us to do there because I know this is a kit, right? This is a kit version, but it's not a kit. It's a kit. It's a kit where you just sort of bolt a few things together, put in a few screws, attach a couple of wires, and you're off. There's no soldering, there's no sticky back plastic or gluing involved as far as I'm aware. So it's going to be very straightforward. 10 minutes. It's going to give it 10 minutes, I reckon. Yeah, well, seems likely. And then in the bottom here, we have the main PCB. It's got a huge amount of space on it. And this row of chips. Now there's probably some really famous chips in here that I can't even read. They're so small. There is a PT2399 in here, which if my memory serves, it's the chip that kind of emulates the Bucket Brigade chips and does that sort of thing, which you would expect to find in an analog effects processor. So that's interesting. See, look, I do know some chips to some degree, to some measure. Oh, look, you know, sticky uppy bits of lights on. Very exciting. And then look at this beautiful case. That's just lovely. But the one thing that we don't have of any kind is instructions. Not a thing, not a sausage, not a piece of paper that says go here or anything. No, nothing at all. So I guess I just make it up. Oh, well, I could go to the website and have a look. Maybe that's the answer. Now on the website, if you can see that okay, on the main page you get access to the user manual. But what we really need is the build guide. And if memory serves, that's actually on the Buy Now page. There we go, soldering not required. Download the construction manual, that's what we want. So if you're trying to find the instructions on the website, the best thing to do is to buy yourself another one and then you'll be able to find them. So here we are, the time effects processor. Got a load of stuff, lots of bits in a bag. Additionally, you will need a screwdriver, hex driver. We shall see with all of these things. So it says we should have 3 PCBs, 1, 2, and the little one is 3. A spring reverb unit. So let's get this out. It's quite exciting. Oh, look at that. Just excellent. Just excellent. All right, looking forward to that. Good. Then in this bag, we've got rubber feet, got the power connector, got a whole bunch of these standoffs. So this is called 7 plastic spacers, 10 metal spacers, 1, 2, 3. A little hex driver, which is extraordinarily useful because Dreadbox do like to use these horrible little hex screws here, which require the Allen key. It just makes them slightly more annoying to remove from your Euro rack or to remove from the case. But hey, they look nice. They look nice. I appreciate the aesthetic of those particular screws. We've got 2 black bolts. What? I don't know what those are, but we've got. Maybe there's 2 in here which are bigger than the rest. And they all look pretty much the same to me. Alright, not going to worry about that for the moment. I've got 1 metal spacer. I've got a bunch of washers. 12 supposedly brass bolts. It says 2 black bolts. I think they probably mean 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yes, there's 12. So the manual does say that there are 2, and I think there should actually be 12. I think that's all right. These are not massive problems, but we've got everything sorted out. Right, we're good. Right, we're good. Let's move on. Let's move on. So step 1 on the control board. Control board. Add all the parts. That's nice and clear. So what have we got exactly? So all the washers, all the plastic bits, all of the metal bits that go all the way around, like so. So it looks like these plastic bits are going to go through the top. They're going to go through a washer and then into one of the silver spacers. Now they're also using one of the metal ones, and I wonder where the metal one goes. On the plated hole as so shown in the pictures. Right, I think this is quite important, otherwise we're going to get this wrong. Because in step 1, okay, so in step 1 it shows us to put everything in the holes except for this corner one here. This is the one that's got the silver around the outside, because we're going to add the metal one to that. So let's ignore that for the moment and do what we need to do on all the other holes. So on all the other holes, You put the plastic thing through, you add a washer, then you add a silver end. Okay, I've done this already wrong. Okay, so the silver bits need to be, so these plastic bits here need to be on this side. Then we turn that over so that the silver bits are on the underside. Right. I am so with it today. So with it. So that needs to come undone. So plastic through from this side. Then the washer. Then the silver bit. I don't know about you, but those washers seem to make it all a little bit wonky. Maybe I need to get a proper tool out and really really screw them in there. I don't know, we're just going to keep going with it for the moment. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those in, leaving this one, the silver one, to be the silver one. So add the double-ended metal spacer to the plated hole as shown. So the spacer goes with a washer into there. Has another washer on the other side. Apparently there's hardly going to be anything for it to grip onto. And then it does at a kind of a strange angle, and it's at a strange angle in the picture too. That should then pull itself together. So I guess a little bit of energy is required. So it should look like that. And it does. Good. Step 3. Add the power supply metal spacers to the board. Okay, so that's 2 more of these silver things. 2 of the brass screws, supposedly brass screws, and 2 washers. And this is not this board that we're talking about. We are now talking about this board, this bit here. So what it needs is a screw to go through from the underside. Washer, metal bit. Screw through. Washer. Metal bit. Yeah, that looks right. That looks right. Good. Good instructions, by the way. Good step-by-step stuff that I'm very much appreciating. The level of detail here. Connect the control and voice boards as shown. So we're going to put the 2 together. The important thing is going to be the marrying up of these 2 bits here. Yeah. So the pins going into those sockets. That's the bit that's going to orient the whole equation. So get that to go together. Then everything else should find its way. You can't quite get that wrong, can you? I don't think you can. Well, who knows? So looking around, it looks like the rest of the screws are going to go in various places in order to pull it together. That looks simple enough to me. That seems to be all we're doing. Right, so turn it over onto this side. Hopefully this will help kind of straighten everything out a little bit. Alright, let me put a couple of these in. That's working. So that's all of those screws in brilliantly. I'm ace at this. Connect the spring reverb. Right, what we've got to do. So this has to go this way around. Place the spring so that the LEDs in the indicated area, and the spring is located exactly on the short dash line. Do what? Let's have a look. Have I got this the right way around? Possibly not. Okay, you see these bits here, the connectors. So these connectors go on the inside. They go on the inside track next to these bits, which is the opposite to what that picture says initially. And then that fits quite nicely around these LEDs, and that will sit there. And then connect the cables. Now we need to stick it first, so this is just being held down by bits of old sticky tape, funnily enough. So we're going to peel those off. Then quite carefully, with, as I say, with these power connectors facing into the sliders, they want to go down either side of those LEDs. Now we're supposed to connect these up. Are they supposed to be connecting up to there? Wouldn't it be better to do that before we stick this in? Yeah, because that's going to be hard to stick it in, isn't it? Once this is in, how am I going to get to it? So, all right, I'm going to elect to plug these little things in before I stick the reverb down, which is a bit tricky because I've already taken the stuff off, the sticky stuff off. So, just trying to make life easy for myself, he says. Easy for myself. So the red one goes there, green one goes there, red one's to the outside, green one's to the inside. Right, now those are plugged in, twang. I can potentially settle this in here. Into between the two LEDs along the dotted lines. There. Well, that was a bit of a palaver. Right, got it. Now, I've done that. Of course, that's now gone slightly differently. So I'm going to have to poke that up there to try to make it nice and flat. And this one the same. So, because I've gone off piste, as it were, I have no doubt that I have somehow made it worse and made it more difficult for me to put the top on or something. But hey, that's plugged in. I could sit under there. Who's going to mind? Is that going to mind? Who's going to mind if that sits under there? I don't think. Is it going to stick out? Or maybe it's going to stick out. So maybe what I'll do is I'm going to fish that out of there. Pull that through. So that can then slide up between the sliders as suggested by the picture. Do the same here. Yeah, I think I got away with it. Good. Next bit, step 6. Attach the front panel. Should be that easy. So this is using the hex nuts and the little Allen key. So that's not right, obviously. This has to be right this way around. It's going to be a bit of a twangy module. So yeah, that just sits in there nicely. You've got a whole bunch of things to fill in. Let's do that. Not tricky, is it? Not tricky. So there, looking smart. A reverb hiding behind the grill. That's lovely. Okay, so connecting the power strip, which is this bit here, which all you need to do is plug that in there. And well, I'm going to go through with this just to put it in the case. So you just plug that on there and do the little screws up. But if you're going to drop this into your modular, then you won't need to do that bit, because that is your modular power supply socket just under there. Right, quick bit of admin on this. Stick the feet on in the corners. Lovely. Right, connect the unit to a power source. To choose the right power source, please refer to the user's manual. Okay, to make sure it's working, follow the procedure described on step 11. We are going to use only the trimmers marked chorus and feed. Random level is pre-trimmed, should not be touched. More information about random level, please refer to chapter 11. Okay, set up everything as shown on the picture. Right, we've got a little bit of testing to do. That's interesting. So this is all sort of before we put it in the case. So I'm desperate to put it in the case. It needs to go this way around. That's going to look great. For the testing, I'm going to use the USB to power it. I think that seems to be wise at the moment, so I can keep it out of the case, not tied into the Euro rack. So all I'm going to need is a USB power source. Okay, slightly confused and befuddled by the manual at this point. So step 9 talks about connecting it to a power source, but then it says to make sure that it's working, go to step 11. So what's step 9 about? I think step 9 is some kind of calibration thing. But perhaps before we do that, we need to go to step 11 to check that something's working. Slightly confusing. So, okay, so I think what we'll do, we'll jump to step 11 then. Just plug it in and run something through it. But there's a whole load of stuff here. Okay. Alright, I'm going to improvise, right? Nothing could possibly go wrong when I do that. So I'm just going to set myself up for recording. So I've got a twang going on. Let's power this up. So I'm going to plug the USB into the side here. There doesn't appear to be an on switch or anything, so it should just light up. I had something there for a minute and then it went away. Oh no, there is something there. And I can see a little bit of light coming from there. Interesting. So I'm going to take the output of that surface, twanging away, plug that into the input there, and then take the output and plug that back into my system here. Okay, so that's an input. I can definitely hear that. So I've got an active button. Definitely think I've got some stuff going on, so that's exciting. So I think I'll go back now to step 9 and follow the calibration through. Does that make sense? And then once we've done that, we'll come back and properly test it and have a look, see what we can do with it. Yeah? Right, so step 9, connect power. Did that. Make sure it's working. Did that. We're only going to use the trimmers marked as chorus and feed. So on the back here, we've got feed and chorus. Forget about random level. So we're going to need something which is going to fit in there, this is slightly too big. Right, so everything should be set as shown in the picture. So in the picture, that should be off, that should be off, that should be on. Those should be down to the bottom. Those should be down. That one should be up. Those should be down, down, out. Now we need the output. Okay, good. We could hear that, that's good. Connect the out patch to a monitor, make sure it's loud enough that the ground floor noise is audible. Well, possibly with a small flat screwdriver, set the chorus so that no oscillation can be heard from the output of the unit. So you're looking for a high pitch audible sound. Okay, so it needs to be loud enough so we can hear it, but my system is kind of over there. Hang on. So if I turn the chorus one, alright, there's a high pitched noise. Alright, I mean I've got a large noise floor anyway coming from my modular, so I think I'm supposed to turn it until that high pitched noise goes away. That's what I'm going to go for anyway. Start with the trimmer set at 0. Not that I know what that is, I assume that's all the way sort of anti-clockwise. Now set the feed slider on the chorus section to max. Right, now set the feed slider on the chorus section at max. Self-oscillation from the chorus will be applied by sliding the volume out downwards. What? So okay, it's currently going through Reverb over here. That's making things more difficult. Right, so I've set the feed to maximum. Self-oscillation from the chorus will be applied by sliding the volume out downwards. It makes no sense. With the trimmer feed, set the unit so that a constant self-oscillation is applied to the sound. Apply this step only when the feed slider is set to max, and then it goes away at 80%. Right, well, so it's saying that you should get feedback, which we are. And I don't quite get this bit. I mean, maybe that's just saying that I don't know what that means. Self-oscillation from the chorus will be applied by sliding the volume out downwards. Don't know what that means. With the trimmer feed underneath, set it so that constant self-oscillation is applied to the sound. That's there. But do it only when it's set to max. Then set feed to 80 to 90% to make sure that the oscillation is stopped. Well, as far as I can tell, right, I've got self-oscillation at maximum. I've got 80 to 90%, you know, 75, 80%, it stops. Which is more or less what it should be. I think, what's going to happen if I turn the feedback thing? Should I try? Alright, I can't have it completely feeding back. So if I go to the feedback one, If I turn that a little bit, is that going to change what happens here? Okay, I don't think that's quite sensitive enough. Alright, so I'm going to go maybe turn that back again. Alright, so what I'm interpreting this time is that you're just trying to set the feedback with that trim knob underneath. So you want it to stop feeding back at around 80 to 90%. And that seems to be what I've got about there, I think. Yeah? I think that's what it was about. What the other bit was about was just getting rid of the high pitch noise, I think. Good. I love the calibration, but it's just, it fills me full of joy every time. It's my favourite thing. It really is. So I think we got through that. Then complete it by sticking it in the enclosure and screwing it in. Yay. Right, I think we got there. So there we go. That was the build. It's done. It's got little LEDs inside. Those are nice. I'm very excited to put this into my rack and start running things through it. I've got a special thing set up there just for it, which unfortunately just doesn't quite have enough room. So I'm going to have to rethink that. But ultimately, I'm going to be sticking the Reissue through this, I think, because that seems like appropriate. And I'll see what else I can squeeze into the case. So I'm going to go over there and sort that out. And I'll bring you back to when we're ready for a proper demo. Right, got it plugged in here. Looking splendid. Got it next to the Reissue here, which I've fed into it, just using a single oscillator to keep things simple. And I've just got the input set and the output set. This is actually working via MIDI, which is what that cable's for. And what I want to do is follow the instructions through, because having a look and having a play, I'm not convinced that I've got everything quite right. So I just want to go through step by step, not making assumptions, and just trying to do this a little bit more correctly. So, so connect an instrument. Set all the things to 0%. Effects are off. Set the in slider so that the left LED below the panel, the left LED, set everything to 0. What? So that the left LED below the panel above the spring unit is flashing here and there while you are playing. If you're using a guitar or fretted instruments, like the signal will not peak, so no LED will be blinking while playing. So we're looking at this one, but that one's on all the time. Whereas it's the right hand one that seems to flash. Oh, I'm just confusing myself now. But okay, so we've got a level. That's fine. Set the out. So you've got something going on. I don't know. I'm going to set them to somewhere in the middle, both of the fellas. Chorus flanger. Turn it on. Set the time slider to max. Set the feed slider to 80%. So there's its oscillation. Just going to back it off from that. Set the level and rate to about 50%. You should be able to hear a heavy modulation going on. To see the left LED blinking at the rate. Ah, so that's better. That's making sense. So I think they did mean the right hand one earlier on. So I speed that up. That then goes. What I'm not really really getting. Not really getting a sense of chorus. It's better if I have less of an input. That's better. That sounds a lot better. So maybe it's just a matter of getting the level right. So I'm coming from Eurorack, which is really quite hot, as opposed to guitar, if you were plugging that in, would be relatively low. So I think having the input lower is what's made that work. Right. I might look at that at some depth at another time, but for the moment, I'm going to leave that like that. Good, right, turn the chorus off, set the mix feed to 50% on the delay. Should be able to hear it. Then finally the reverb. So for the LFO, which is here, the built-in LFO, set the rate to 30-40% and view as the wave LED blinks to the rate. Circle all the waveforms with the wave button. Okay, I think triangle, square and then random gates. Set it to square. Is that square? that triangle. That could be square. I don't know. Now increase the lag slider and observe how it becomes softer like a triangle wave. I see. Yeah, okay. Set the LFO to a square wave. Lag at 0, rate at 30, level at max. And then patch it to something. Right, okay, I've got a nice light up thing here. Patch what? This out to something. So it turns the chorus on and off. So what do I think? What do I think of this thing? The Hypnosis, the time effects processor. It's not as easy to sum up as I thought it might be. I expected just to be completely enveloped and bowled over by it. And to some degree I am. The delay, fabulous. Spring reverb, oh yeah, interesting. Textures, stuff going on there that I can definitely get my teeth and my fingers into. The chorus and the flanger, I don't know, that's taken a little bit of time to kind of get that right. Kind of feels like it should just be like hitting a guitar pedal, bam, and you've got this wonderful sort of modulating chorus going on. Or when you hit it on a synth, I'm expecting that, you know, that Juno chorus 2 to come in. And it doesn't. It's fussy, it's growly, it takes a little bit of setting up between the inputs and outputs and levels and bits and pieces to try to find a sweet spot which sounds like chorus that I'm expecting it to sound like. But that might well be my preconception. Difficult to say, really. It might be something to do with that configuration, that calibration thing that I stumbled through that was quite badly described in the manual, that perhaps I need to go back and revisit that. I'm not sure about that. I'm also not sure about the LFO. I'm not sure of its purpose. I mean, I know what an LFO does, obviously, but what within these effects can you modulate successfully? I was thinking about that. I mean, obviously you can modulate you have the time on the delay, you have the pre-delay on the reverb, and you have the time and rate on the chorus. And I haven't yet found a way of using it that does anything interesting other than turns it on and off really fast or sticks it up and down really fast. So this has not become immediately useful to me, which is disappointing. The other thing that perhaps I didn't quite grasp, maybe from the original, maybe just from this, I don't know, is I kind of felt that I could patch into them individually. I made a massive assumption that I could do that. I thought I could use the chorus on one thing, the delay on another. I've only got one input, so it goes through all three. So it's a single instrument effects box, and for that, it's a lot of HP. A lot. So that's got me thinking in lots of different ways. I still like it. I mean, some of this is fantastic. Absolutely gorgeous. So I'm not unhappy in any stretch. It's just different to how I thought it was, and I'm just trying to give an honest appraisal. However, I do feel tempted now to put it back in its enclosure so that I can use it as a bit more of a send effect, something that I use occasionally, perhaps sending to it from a mixer, different things going to it, rather than having it within an instrument like this. Although I have to say, the Nifty Keys is really finding itself in this sort of thing. You know, it's lovely in this context, and using a little synthesizer with it, this is a really perfect combination. I could use this on the desktop as well as I'm using it in Eurorack, but in this, with the keyboard built in, it's just quite brilliant, really quite brilliant. The Custer and Pollux over here, in some ways, is overwhelming it, because the thing, I mean, with both of these actually, because they have dual oscillators, it tends to run into its own kind of modulation. It's almost got built-in chorus because of the detuning that you get between the oscillators, and so that perhaps is making the chorus flanger here a little bit more ineffectual. So what I think I will do is I'm going to stick the Deckard's voice in and try out that and perhaps a few other sound sources, just to see whether I can get the full measure of it. reflection. After a little bit more of a play, introducing a different sound source, something as beautiful and emotive as Deckard's voice, I have a completely different feel for it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Right, on my first attempts at playing with this, having a bit of a go, I ran into some difficulties. Got a bit confused by the whole chorus flanger thing. It wasn't really what I was expecting. And so I got a little bit frustrated with it, I feel. But now, having spent a bit more time, I've changed the source material I've used, which is just a way really of doing things over. You know, if you get yourself into a knot, try using something else and see whether you can find your way out, which is what I did. And I've had some now completely awesome and wonderful times with the Hypnosis and the Deckard's voice and a few other bits and pieces. It's just lovely. Now, that's not to say that it's as good as perhaps I hoped it would be, because it isn't quite. It's great, it's gorgeous, it has these moments of beauty and awesomeness, and it has this grunge that you feel it's going to creep in at any moment, which you may like, you may not like. But the area that's really perhaps a little bit underwhelming is in the chorus and flanging part. So I'll give you a little bit of a demo and just talk you through what I mean. I mean, so this is the Deckard's voice. Which is a nice, very nice little synthesizer. This is completely dry. Let's add in the spring reverb. So that's on a relatively low mix. You can push that up quite high. Before you lose it altogether. But somewhere down here around the 15-20% sounds lovely to me. You can push the gain up, which forces it into this point where it just starts to go, oh! And it starts to ring, and you get that back of the hall kind of graininess. And again, I find just having a little touch of that seems to be the point of perfection for me. Then you have pre-delay. Which I guess just delays the reverb a little bit. Pre-delay, so you get the sound before reverb. I like the reverb to be there straight away, personally. So it's kind of like an early reflection, I suppose. You get the sound, and then you get the sound behind it with the reverb. Yeah, it's quite interesting. But my sweet spot is kind of about there. I think works for me, otherwise it just gets too overwhelming. Then we have the delay. It's like the Reissue delay, so it's good and crunchy. It's not a gorgeous digital delay with its cleanliness and its finely tuned bits and pieces. This is quite a washy, meaty, chewable delay, which I really like. It does have an effect on the overall volume coming through. let's just have a bit of a play with these two, because these two in particular for me really do shine as a fantastic resource of tone and sound and space and animation that I like a lot. So I'm just going to stick on the arpeggiator in some kind of fashion. Just super. Lovely, 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 lovely. I could play with that all day. Now, the chorus flanger. Let's see if we can work this out. Now, I did post on Facebook that something along the lines of, what is this chorus flanger thing all about? And I've had lots of lovely people reply with lots of instructions on exactly how you use a chorus and a flanger. And that's not really what I meant, but I appreciate it anyway. And actually I've learned a whole lot about what a chorus and flanger is. But my usual experience of chorusing and flanging is that you turn it on and it happens. You hear that sort of wobbliness of a chorus and you hear the whoo of the flanger. Both of which I try to use on guitar and then always end up turning off. But on synthesizers, particularly Junos and things like that, turning on that chorus is a beautiful, wonderful thing that just elevates a sound. And that's kind of what I was expecting with this, and it doesn't really deliver that. So I've had to sort of play with it, massage it a bit, try to see if I can work out where both the chorus and the flanger are within this thing. Because it is there, it just has a much more sort of subtle and ungraspable quality about it, which takes a little bit of fiddling. But let's see if together we can work it out, because there are absolute moments where it's just been lovely. Let's see if we can find some of those. So let's have a look in the manual to see what it tells us about the chorus and the flanger. Now, they're actually very similar. It says it's essentially a delay with its time modulated by an LFO. Now, there's an LFO within here. There is an LFO here, but this is a separate independent LFO that does its own thing, which might be useful to you or not. LFOs within time domain generally create weirdness and strange effects, and that's probably what it's best used for. Although I've actually used it for modulating the wavetable over here in the Osiris, but that's a whole different thing. Anyway, back to the chorus and flanger. It says to achieve the flanging effect, you need to set the delay time to 10 milliseconds or up to 10 milliseconds. And then when it's between 10 and 30, milliseconds, you will hear the chorus. See, that's interesting because none of these here say delay time and none of it's labelled with milliseconds. So, I'm a little bit befuddled as to exactly what to do with that information. And this is similar information that people gave me on Facebook. It's good, it's useful, but my question was really very much in the context of this particular chorus flanger. But let's see if we can get to what they're talking about. So it says traditionally a flanger effect needs its LFO rate to be set between 1 and 15 seconds. And a chorus should be between 250 milliseconds and 2 seconds. So LFO rate, we've got a rate, but again we don't really know its range and where that is, but we could probably try to listen to it and try to work that out. So when you try to do the flanger effect, you'll need an amount of feedback, whereas feedback's not really needed for chorus. But in order to achieve the best results, you might need a pinch. And then there's this business about comb filter. But anyway, let's see what we can work out. So I've got 4 controls: feed, level, rate, and time. So feed is the feedback. We know that a bit, we've understood that, we've had, by putting it up to the top, turning it on, we have experienced it self-oscillating, which it's not doing just at the moment. There we go. Okay, well that's lovely, but that's feedback. Ultimately, it's feeding back into itself that can potentially create self-oscillation or can beef things up a little bit. So it sets the delay feedback. LFO level. So this is the LFO level. LFO is these 2 in the middle, level and rate. So the LFO level indicates the amount applied to the delay time. This is delayed feedback. This must be delay time as a whole. Okay, looking at that in a minute. So as you turn up the slider, the time control will have a smaller range. See, I don't know why that is. When it's at max, time control has no effect. So you are modulating the delay time. So I guess as you're modulating it, it's already moving. So trying to then move it up and down is not going to have much of an effect if it's already going max to max. So when it's doing nothing, you can then move it with the time up and down. But if it's wobbling, then you actually have less to move it to because there's less space between the wobbles. Do you see what I'm saying? Oh, maybe not. We'll keep going. When it's at its max, the time control has no effect. In order to create the comb filter, you put that to 0%. So LFO rate sets the speed of the LFO, can be very slow, up to about 1 minute, or very fast to 1 milliseconds. And the left side will indicate the speed, which is helpful actually. And the time controls the delay time in its whole range. So if the level is at 0, then this gives us the whole range over the time. So at one point when I was trying this out, I put the LFO into the time one here, which is, and I got a good effect. And I thought, oh, well, maybe that's the secret to it. And it is, but that's what the internal LFO is doing. That's the whole point, is that you are modulating the delay time. See, that's how the thing works. So that's why I got a good result with that. I stumbled into how chorus and flanging works, all by just patching stuff. As you increase the LFO level, the time slider will have a shorter effect. So delay time can be set from 2.5 to 40 milliseconds. So 2.5 at the bottom, 40 milliseconds at the top, I'm assuming. Or is that the other way round? Which way round would it go? Is 40 milliseconds, 2.5 milliseconds, 40 milliseconds is greater, is slower. Yeah. So which way up is it? Well, I don't know, we're tricky now. Tricky, into the area of trickiness. So we're back to our difference between chorus and flanger. So when a delay time is set up to 10. So if we're assuming that the time is 2.5 at the bottom, I just don't know. But let's put a nice long note in. whether we can get that to do something. So that's without the chorus flanger. I'm going to put it in. And what we should do for chorus, let's try chorus. The time should be, so the LFO, getting confused now, don't know, between 10 milliseconds and 30 milliseconds, so it should be at the top. And then we've got rate, which should be between 1 and 15 seconds. So down this end of things. And then if we stick the level up, that's now modulating the time. I take that out, put it back in. It's definitely a thing. Okay, so I read that backwards. Alright, so the chorus needs to be the faster rate, doesn't it? We need to get that wobble going, which is what we've got. It's a flanger, which is a slower rate. Yeah? We introduce a bit of feedback. That might fatten it up. So there's definitely an effect in play. If I take it out, so there's definitely some chorus there. You can hear that. That's putting the feedback all the way up. Gentle with the level. More pronounced as you push the time forward. Okay, so let's see if we can make it into a flanger. So for that I bring the rate down. Hear that already. And the delay time should come down apparently, but then I don't know which way up this is, as I say. It's difficult to say. So that sounds like a flanger to me. I would love to say that I've totally aced that. I don't feel that I have, not in the slightest. But there's definitely a chorus flangey type effect that's in there. It tends to get lost if you have it running with the delay at the same time, I find. So if you put everything on, for instance. Oh, it's still there. It just feels like it's not pronounced enough. There needs to almost be a wet dry mix so you can actually apply more of the chorus, as opposed to what we have. It's there, it's just about there, there's something going on, but it's not having the impact that I think you would normally expect from some kind of analog chorus. Hey, what do I know? So let me do a couple of things. First of all, put a little bit of the Osiris through. I mean, as I say, there's an LFO here that you can modulate stuff, but that tends to do crazy stuff. But let's do a little bit of that. Let's stick on the ARP again, just for fun. Also, if I take the LFO output, which is glowing a little bit here, I can stick that in the delay time. Quite good fun. It also has some different settings. Let's try it on the relay. Has a square wave, which means you can just turn sort of things on and off. Like you can activate or deactivate one of the effects. So it can turn itself on and off, which is quite nice. In fact, the CV controlled activation of each effect is really useful, I would say. You don't see that very often on effects in modular, so it's really great to see the ability to bypass the effect in the first place and also to be able to control that via CV. But if you push the lag up, it then changes the square wave on and off into more of a triangle sort of shape. Or it pushes the triangle into more of a sine sort of shape. So if I pop over to the Osiris over here, wavetable synthesizer, I could then use the LFO to alter the wavetables. So one last question then. Can I plug a guitar in, and use it as an effects processor for that? The answer is more or less yes. I haven't preamped this or anything. I'm just going directly into the input here via a jack to mini jack cable. Let's come back down here a little bit. So there you have it, the Hypnosis, a perfectly interesting, fascinating, time effects processor from Dreadbox in all its glory and all its honesty. I really love the delay and the spring reverb. The chorus, well, I mean, it's something, but it's not thrilled me in particular. So, you know, 2 out of 3 isn't bad, I suppose. And you may get a lot more out of it than I did, but it's going to stay here. I really like this arrangement at the moment, and I really like being able to get stuck into the Deckard's voice again. That really brings me a lot of pleasure, because it's the sort of thing that you need to focus on and play with in of itself, rather than it just being yet another module in your rack. And so this sort of focus I'm enjoying. I'm going to keep massaging this into the perfect combination of bits and pieces, and the two just go together beautifully. It really is a brilliant little match between those two things, as much as anything. Anyway, you know, I hope that was useful, and in the meantime, go make some tunes. Listen to the crunchiness of that. Really, the crunchiness. That's just amazing. That's what that chorus does, perhaps. That is perhaps that point at which it really exists. It creates this movement, it creates this stuff that's dripping off around the edge of the sound. So it's less of a wash of chorus and more of a drip. It's more of a crusty bit around the edge. Maybe that's where it is. It's almost giving it a flavour of tape. It's giving it a destructive lo-fi vibe. And maybe that's where it should be. Cheers.